Hello, and welcome to the Deep Thought. My name is Samantha Jolene, and I will be co hosting alongside my friend and fellow deep thinker Gursimar Singh. The Deep Thought is where two minds meet and present perspectives from lived and learned experiences. We will discuss, question, extrapolate, and synthesize any and all things. Our minds are the only limit. So, this podcast is intended to be an unfolding process. We will begin with a thought and follow it as far as we can in a spontaneous and honest way. Our intention is to show up just as we are and speak our authentic truth. We will talk about things that are relevant to us, to the world, to the universe, to the multiverse, and our place within it. So, pretty much anything is subject to the deep thought treatment. Hello.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
Okay. How are you?
I am doing all right. Yes.
Hmm.
What have you been up to this last week or two?
Well, nothing much. Uh, it was all work last week, 7 days. Plus, I shot for a movie, a little part, and this week not much work. But yeah, it's been good. How have you been?
Okay. I'm kind of interested in what movie you shot for. Can I ask? Like what part was it? What did you
Oh,
do?
well, it was is a movie that is being made by one of the local filmmakers who's a professor at the college in film program. So he was actually making a movie of a distant future in a kind of a post-apocalyptic world where, like, corrupt and rich have taken over, and the others are just trying to survive and form an organized group so that they can get through what they want. So I'm one of those. I'm a part of one of those groups that is organized into a kind of an armed rebellion group. Yeah,
Ooh.
yeah, and I am the leader.
Oh, cool.
So I'm like having this commanding and loud voice, and the scene being shot of was of me saying telling the instructions about our next operation and why is it important and what do we need to do, and like this is the danger that if we stay, and this is the danger if we move, so but we have to do it, kind of stuff.
Okay. Did you
Yeah.
like pull any inspiration from anybody or any other films that you've seen or?
Well, hard to say because mm, what I usually did was like I listened to a lot of music that inspired me in the sense that motivates you in a fiery way.
Hmm.
I drew some motivation from the history that I know of from my own religion, back history. Plus, I listened to the music. I let you an inside thing. I listened to a lot of Terminator 3.
Really?
Yeah,
So is that like epic music? Like,
yeah.
oh my
The
goodness.
you have you heard about the Terminator series, right?
No, but I know that there'd be a soundtrack
Yeah,
to the movies.
yeah. There is like one theme, and it actually, when you hear it, I don't know if you're much of a music person, but when I hear it, it actually gives me fiery motivation. So of the visuals that I have in my head plus that music. So just to prepare for that role, just to get into that mental energy, into that zone, I heard a lot of that music and it helped. It like changed the mental condition completely.
Hmm. Oh yeah, music is super powerful.
Absolutely, yeah.
You reminded me of when I was in Australia.
Hmm.
I was traveling by myself, and I yeah, was had a lot of fear. So sometimes there'd be sometimes where I just like would have like fear paralysis where I just didn't know what to do, where to go, and there was no one I could lean on or ask, to help me because it was all entirely me. So I ended up tapping into some my music repertoire, and I
Hmm.
mostly found like electronic music that basically makes your life feel like an epic movie. So I totally like understand why you listen to the Terminator because then it's your own soundtrack. So you hear it and then you see your world in front of you and then you are like emphasizing your character in the world and you're like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I can do it. There's this like a part of it that feeds your soul and it's like, yes, take that step, like, walk with the music. There's also like
Hmm.
that motivating like rhythm or beat, especially if it's more steady and then like loud or um quicker, then that gets you moving as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
there's so many times where I've used music to help me motivate myself. It's a really good example actually. Like there's an override quality to it actually.
Yep, absolutely. Like, uh, there's so many kinds of music, and every other music has its own feel. Like, there's music that can like motivate you, give you a fiery motivation to, just go do it, come what may, like a warrior. And then there's music that, you listen to, and you might not be there, but you feel like you're sitting in an open field. There's the sun is out and the wind is blowing, and you're just sitting there, and the wind is just going through your hair. And there's also like music which, you listen to when you're feeling sad. It and it, it actually, comforts you to with this sadness. Like, sadness in itself, it's some kind of grief. It is not uh the best thing to be with all the time. Say, a near one's death, a breakup. It's not a one of the most beautiful feelings in the world. It's one of the might be the most ugliest feelings when that happens. But listening to that music, I think it provides some kind of a cushion to that sorrow or grief.
Hmm.
Maybe, you know what, in some way it sucks out the energy of it.
Hmm. Like sucks it out and then what does it leave you with?
Well,
Or is it endless? I think keeps sucking out.
no, it's not endless, but the thing is that we as we discussed in our last episode, like any kind of sorrow, grief, or trauma, it passes gradually. Like, I was seeing this video on Facebook recently, and the lady told that, you need to feel your feelings as long as they don't need to be felt anymore.
Hmm.
So, like, in that way, you, I would say, by listening to the music, we are actually acknowledging those feelings, and we getting comfortable with those feelings at that moment. And I think when the song ends, we are in a better position. Like, when we say we don't keep on eating, we don't keep on bathing, we don't keep on sleeping all day. We sleep, we get up. We said, okay, now on to the next one. We have dinner, we have lunch, we have breakfast, and then we say, okay, morning meal's done, on to the next one. In the same way, like, we listen to the music and then we say, okay, that was sad, but I'm feeling okay now, on to the next one. Kind of that feeling.
Right. Yeah. It can be a tricky one though, because even all the other things that you've listed, sometimes there's like you don't know when to stop, or you're you get addicted to it. So there's that, sitting in the mire, sitting in your, negative emotions, and just like there's something that feels good about them, even though you feel really bad. You just like you become so identified with it that it can be difficult for you to want to step away from that and not entertain them, not think about everything you're thinking about, or feeling everything you're feeling. So you kind of just get lost in it. And I think that goes the same thing for oftentimes with like eating. Like there's you get a positive feedback, when you're giving your body food, you're feeling nourished, you're feeling a little bit better, maybe the food tastes good. I think taste is definitely something that adds that addictive quality to something.
Mhm.
And then even though you're getting signals about being full, there's like a psychological addiction to what you're doing. And then, that could also go with like watching TV or like anything can be turned into an excess if we aren't willing to let go and to decide to move on from it.
Mhm.
There's like, even though change is like one of the most true things about being alive, being human,
Yeah.
and witnessing nature, it's still something that we really struggle with. Like we want to cling on to something that's solid and that is unchanging, yet everything is always changing. So I think that makes it really difficult to get out of those cycles, especially if you do let yourself, stay in the mire a little too long, or watch that extra 5 episodes of a show that like maybe you could be doing something else.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, sorry for interrupting. What were you saying?
Oh no, if you can
Yeah, okay.
you can carry the torch.
Yeah, no, the certain points that you picked up, I actually, personally relate to them. I'll get to those. So like you're saying that sometimes people, identify with that and it gets hard for them to, move on from it, like listening to music, they're doing it again and again and again and again, feeling that feeling again and again. What I believe is that here it comes down to the way a person perceives what is in their life. One point. And second point is like, what if actually there was nothing much more significant in their life, like that they have to go to, and not just stick with that sorrow or grief that they have. For example, like if a person is really possessive about someone in a relationship, if their partner just breaks up with them, or someone they love just passes away, and they perceive them as their life, so getting out of that, well, it becomes tricky as well as tough, because a big void, because what came to my mind when you were talking was, life can be a big void, and we fill the void of life with many, many, many things. We have ourselves to take care of, we have our family, we have our belongings, we have our relationships, we have uh the community as a whole, we have this earth to take care of, the consciousness of our environment and climate change and everything. So, and I think the management of that things, like what one thing, how much one thing occupies, how much of space one thing occupies in your life. I think life is all about that. So might be sometimes person perceives as something as their whole life, a big void of their life is being filled by them. So them, or some person or something. So when they go, that big void that is left, managing that void can be hard and tricky. In a way, like sometimes people have an awareness of like everything that is there, and like I have this to go to, I have this to go to. In that way, the rearrangement happens. It takes time though, but it happens. But sometimes people just look at the void and don't look at other things. Perception, like what do we say? So they just see the void and they perceive it, you know what, my whole life has nothing to do with my right now. And that void gets automatically filled with like addictions, with whatnot, and which can harm them. And the other point that I could relate to was there might be nothing going on. Say, for example, what I would take my personal example. As a child, I didn't have many friends. So I think, to a point, I had this addiction of TV and food, because I have actually uh, had a bout of indigestion many times. I would just eat and eat and eat and eat and vomit it out at one point of time. And other than that, just watching TV, nothing else. If the TV is free, just switch it on. No, nothing to play with. Can't go out and things like that. I had much more stuff going on, so it's a long story. So, but I have had those things. So as a child, there is not much significant going on. You don't like studying. You don't have much friends, and the family is there, but that is all that it is. And you might not be feeling that good living there. Just your perception, the way you think. So you go to the next best thing that you feel good with. It's either TV or it's either food. It was for me. So yeah.
Yeah. No, those are really good examples. You just keep making me think about um, that those things are really distractions,
Yeah.
you know? Like they're not from the void,
Mhm.
because the void, I know it's a tricky one, because when you were describing it, it really made me see the negative aspect of staring into the void, which I consider myself to be a void starer, where I will sit and I will stare into the void, and um, yeah, a lot of things will come out of the void, and a lot of yourself goes into it as well. I don't really know how to explain it, um, but there's like that negative aspect of it, allowing. There's that saying, isn't there? It's like if you stare into the void will stare back into you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's so true. It's like it becomes a mirror for you. So
Mhm.
whatever you put into the void is gonna reflect back at you.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you said, you could invest time in your family, your friends, your work. But then at the end of the day, there's always that moment when there's nothing in particular to do, nothing that you really should be doing. There's a slowing down. We struggle as a society to slow down, and I think it's because there's that reluctance and fear even of sitting in front of the void without putting anything into it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Like, I think it's what came to my mind is, I think it has become a mentality of today's time that, if you're setting free, you are actually good for nothing. And that good for nothing has a very, very dangerously scary feeling attached to it, if in the contemporary world. Good for
Yeah,
nothing.
if you're
Yeah,
if
go
you're
ahead.
not a productive human, or you're not contributing at every moment basically to
Mhm.
the whole and society, then you're worthless.
Yeah.
And that is an ingrained mentality into us today. And so another way to look at it is being afraid to be with yourself,
Yeah.
because as we said, the void is reflecting back at you. It's reflecting you. It's you. and
Mhm.
and that's a very difficult thing to sit with and to be with. And I know what I find for myself is those moments when I'm really looking for a distraction are the moments when the void is really calling me. And it's like yeah, it's going, come on, come on, like sit, like stop, let it settle. It's like when you shake up um a jar that's got like dirt particles in it, and it's just super cloudy and muddy. You're not going to be able to see anything through it. But if you were to just place that jar on a table and allow all of that debris to settle, then it'll become clear. And
Mhm.
that's that waiting for it to settle is the part that's really uncomfortable and
Mhm.
is really scary for a lot of people, because that means witnessing everything that is inside of you, all of your thoughts, all of your fears, all of your emotions. And they'll only be settled if they are witnessed, because if you're not witnessing them, you're shaking them. That's what
Yep.
you're
Yep.
doing.
Absolutely.
And then until it's settled, then you could witness that clarity, and then you move through that clarity.
Mhm.
And often, um that's when you'll get like inspired to do something, you'll or maybe inspired to do nothing, where you actually are sitting there and you finally enjoy sitting there. You finally notice that there's a bird singing in the tree next to you. You
Mhm.
finally notice that this whole time you've been sitting and looking at a tree that you hadn't noticed was there. And then taking that mentality into the tree, and maybe wondering, wow, like, how long has this tree been sitting here noticing me? you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
like infinitely,
Mhm.
like in their time, because trees are like everything, all the world moves around them. So if they are witnessing us, they have that full capacity to do so all the time. And
Mhm.
so it takes that awareness outside of yourself.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what we lose when we are constantly pulling things in to distract us, is we're losing that outward perspective.
Yeah. That's very true. And you know what? I think the analogy that you said, we're shaking the jar with which has water and which has muddy water in it, and we should sometimes we need to settle it down for the debris to settle down. What other point came to my mind was sometimes that would happen. The work, the feeling of good for nothing being completely worthless. Sometimes in today's time, maybe it happens due to us comparing our jars. Like if we were to imagine our life as a jar with that thing that you said. Sometimes comparing, oh my God, that person's jar is muddier than me, and he or she is shaking it a lot more than me. That person is a little less, but he's still shaking. Why am I sitting like that? Should I be doing like that? Is it right? Is it wrong? I'm confused. Yeah, and
Totally.
that kind of thing has been for a long time. Like I don't know if is it industrialization, is it a thing of industrialization or what, but why is there so much of mental health awareness coming in right now? Because this has had become a pandemic since last some time. Now we are used to living our lives in a certain way with that shaking, that things going on all around our life, affecting our relations and affecting everything else. We are used to that, that disturbance coming around. So settling it down, everything becoming normal, has actually uh, become a thing to be feared. uh, it's
Like
weird though, but
like
but
when you say becoming normal, what do you mean? Like going back to back to the way things were, um
no, no,
or
yeah,
like
like when we talk about generation gap, our parents would say, our life was like this was the price of eggs, this was the price of the grocery and things, and we would walk and we would bicycle, and our parents would do this for us. And today's time, like we don't even have time, we have more aspirations, less money, and some things like that. And that has affected our relationships, our house life, in a way that being in stress, being burnt, is see, is perceived as a sign of productivity. And if someone is not doing something, if someone is like settled down, that is seen as, oh my God, I'm not being productive. Am I being wrong? Am I being a good father? Am I being a good son? Am I being a good worker? Am I being a good person? So viewing things in that light, comparing to others also. So that has actually changed the way we are living. I might have confused you there.
No, no, totally. No, I see what you're saying. Yeah. It's the focus is on being a productive human being, um, over everything else, really.
Yeah.
Um, even and in reference to like the self-care and mental health things that are coming up, even more important than our own mental health, right?
Yeah.
More important than taking care of ourselves. You made me think about um what do I really like about spending time with another human being? Like what is valuable in participating in the world, at least for me. And it's not any of that productive stuff. It's always like every single time it's about that person being present and talking to them and like you know yeah, sharing an experience together.
Yeah.
And there's so many times that even when we're not actively in that producing mentality, and like you're actually physically doing the thing, it's still happening in your head. So you could be with someone and they're not with you because their thoughts are somewhere else. They're focusing on and something that they deem to be more important, when really here you are in this beautiful opportunity to create something together, have a conversation, share wisdom, or share a new experience together, um, which yeah, when you're constantly moving around or when you're distracted in your head, is something that you miss out on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, uh, I was reading something yesterday. I don't know where, but it talked about that. The life happens in this moment. It's not in the past. It's not in your future, but it's happening right now. So, like you talked about sharing the experience and being present, that actually has become the problem too. We might be, talked about sharing the experience, but we also have a worry about that productivity going on all the time. That is that affects a lot.
Oh yeah. Or whatever it is that you are. I think that your comment about the comparison is really key, because it's not even necessarily just that producing mentality, but where where are you in your mind comparing yourself to something else, someone else, the grass is greener on the other side kind of thing, right? Like it's so hard for us to be present with each other
Yeah.
because we're so worried that we're not enough. I
Mm,
think that's what it is this we're so worried that we because we look outside of ourselves and we see other people on the outside doing what we have agreed to as being well and good in the
mm,
world, um, that we don't see ourselves that way, so we must be doing something wrong. Whereas more often than not, if you were to go and be that person that you're comparing yourself to, you're going to find so many parts of that person that is looking outside of themselves to someone else and comparing themselves. And they feel inadequate in that way. Maybe they're a really successful entrepreneur, but they can't be a good dad. And that's the thing that bothers them. That's the thing that they're running away from. So
mm.
we're also really like shining all these things in a negative light, but there is a positive aspect that too as well. And that's to like when we do look outside of ourselves and we do compare,
Hmm.
to remember that first of all there's no true comparison.
Yep.
There's none. Like you can't even compare yourself to yourself yesterday, because
Absolutely.
you are so different. Every moment you are different and changing. And also like there can be positive things about that as well, you know? Well, instead of like looking at your inadequacies, you could look at the other person and lift them up, you know, and go, wow, you know what? That's really great that they're doing that. You know, that's inspiring. And be
Mm,
inspired rather than turn it in on yourself and cut yourself down. You know, oh, that person's more successful than me. I hate them. Versus like, wow, they have a lot of charisma. And I wonder where that comes from. And do I have charisma? You know, like what in me is good?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
what do I have? Because we all have different gifts. We
yeah.
all have different strengths and their shadow, which is weakness, which
Mm,
is also strength, which
mm,
is strength misunderstood
yeah.
because that's usually the thing that we're comparing to something else. We're comparing it to something that seems strong and positive when really it it's a thing in itself that needs to be considered,
Yep, yep.
you know?
Mm.
Anything that is given like a positive or negative value is ultimately being compared to something. Because
Yeah,
without comparison, if like you, Gursimar, existed all alone and there was nothing to compare yourself to, then are you good enough?
oh yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. Yes, there is like positivity to come with that too, because uh so many of the motivational speakers, they talk about you know there being a good stress, there being a bad stress, there being a good fear, there being a bad fear. So everything has its positives as well. And even like looking at the big picture, we often talk about the balance of positive and negative, right and wrong, and whatnot. But understanding it from, I would say, I, I'm sorry, I'm bringing religion a little bit more, just philosophically.
Sure.
So, through religious philosophy, if we are seeing that there is, talking about it in economics way, everybody's duty is someone's right. Like your right is fulfilled by someone's duty. In the same way, like what we see as not good for us, un, unintentionally, it is in some way a good for someone. I'll give you an analogy. For example, we all know that there are thieves and robbers in this world, but those are human beings as well. What are they actually doing of that? For example, I am an engineer, I am working at a firm. What I work for, it gives me money, and through that money, I'm able to feed, clothe, and shelter myself. A thief breaks into my house, breaks into my office, takes the money. What is that thief or robber doing of that? He's trying to feed, clothe, and shelter himself and his family, probably. But there's a comparison that is happening, that this is the right work, this is the wrong work, which is like valid to a certain point of time, but in the big picture of things, what is actually happening? Somebody is, in an unintentional way, doing some productive thing for someone else. It might be counterproductive for themselves, but it is productive for someone else who did it, who actually caused the counterproductive reaction to, not reaction, counterproductive effect through their work on the person. Yeah, it's a lot to wrap your head around.
Well, I think just the last part, the counterproductive, and like where are you going with that? Can you explain that a little bit more?
Well, the thing is, looking at it emotionally, because uh, if you get robbed at gunpoint, it is counterproductive to you emotionally. It takes you really bad. It shakes you in a really bad way. You're not in good terms with yourself and with the world for a long time because of that experience. But like with the money that he took from that person took from you on gunpoint, what did they use it for? Some of them might be doing it out of, uh, uh, don't even, I lost my language, I lost my
Like out
words.
of necessity?
Out of
Like,
necessity, yeah.
yeah.
They don't have a good job, they don't have anything to live by. So they they can't do anything but to, rob or steal to feed themselves, maybe to feed their families. Not all of them are like that, but that that's what they're doing out of necessity. It's
Well,
counterproductive on you. Their
yeah.
work has been counterproductive on you, but somehow they got productive effect out of it.
So this is what you're making. This is like it's kind of like a little offshoot of what you're talking about, but because I keep getting stuck on that mentality of someone stealing from you, and I don't know if I feel like the listeners are picking up on that too, because it's like there is that negative feeling of like, yeah, someone's coming to your house and they're robbing from you. Clearly that's bad.
Yeah.
And what I keep thinking of is the people that steal from us all the time, that that they appear to be doing it in an accepted form, and that's like our corporations. That's like a really big example. Banks, people that lie to you, um, in in the disguise of a business that is supposedly there to help you and make you safe. But what they're first doing is they're taking away your security. Um, the example that's coming to my brain is cosmetics, because um, what like makeup and things do is like they can like enhance, they can be used for theater. There's a lot of different aspects, but one of the uh, primary things that they do is they first tell you that you're not good enough without makeup on. But they don't say that. They don't say you're ugly, you know? But they take away the insecure your security with yourself, which
Mhm.
is essentially, breaking into your home. And then they say, "Oh, but here you can buy this from us and it will make you feel more confident and beautiful. Now you can cover up all those blemishes, you can enhance your eyes and make you more attractive." When without that product being there, your blemishes in your eyes were just a part of you and they're fine, and people might notice it right away. They might notice that, but then once you start actually interacting with another human being, those things kind of like, are they important, so it's this there's this weight of like someone designating something as being important when it doesn't have to be, and then taking something from you that's innate, like your own confidence, just in being who you are and living in the world and having your face, and then
Mhm.
someone, yeah. So there's those robbers, the obvious ones, the
Mhm.
bank robbers, but then
Mhm.
there's the not so obvious ones, the people that are selling you cosmetics,
Mhm.
the people that are saying follow the new trend of clothing, you have to be in style.
Mhm.
What does that even mean? That doesn't mean anything. You can be whatever style you want, whatever makes you feel good, but there's going to be someone from the outside telling you that you look ugly. Well, are you going to let that affect you, or are you just going to just walk in your shoes, like own them? I don't know why those examples came, because I don't particularly wear makeup. I do it for fun.
Mhm.
but but I think, yeah, it's a really obvious example.
Oh. Well, you know what? The example that you brought up, actually, you shed light on the negative aspect of the stealing.
Hmm.
I think I was wrong actually when I said, in the big picture, it doesn't matter, but it actually might matter when robbing and stealing becomes to this way, when it is an organized thing and it's done subtly, and it's not to feed, but it's to become a name. It's to become, you know, wealthy.
Yeah, there's like a parasitic energy that comes with that.
Mhm.
um I know so like on the note of like maybe stealing being a positive thing, I think what you were really leading towards is that like we're all human and there's so many different ways to live in the world and be human,
Hmm.
and sometimes you're pushed into a position where you have to steal
Hmm.
to support yourself.
Yeah,
And someone else seeing that, the first thought is stealing is a bad stealing is bad. But
absolutely.
for that person, that they were put into a corner. You don't know their story, you don't know who they are on the inside. And a lot of people will say like, I don't care, there's like a line, stealing is stealing, they should have done this, they should have done that. But you can never really say those things authentically unless you are the person that is experiencing that thing.
Absolutely. No,
No
absolutely.
matter how much you might understand it, you you as what you said on the first podcast, like the only the person that goes through the mess knows the mess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, completely. Well, and saying so, like I have worked at convenience stores. I have seen this thing, shoplifting and robbing firsthand. At the point when this is happening, all you have for the person who is doing it is, I wish I could kill him in 12 different ways,
Whew.
him or her. Seriously. I wish I could hang him or her. I wish I could, do whatever I, the bad I could because they caused me distress. But and that is like okay, that is completely acceptable because that is the reaction that happens. That's natural.
Yeah. No, you know what you're making me think of, if you don't mind me
Yeah, yeah,
interjecting,
go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
because we've kind of latched on to that theme of stealing,
Mhm.
whereas there's other ways that cause us distress. Like, you made me think about like an overbearing parent who is just like always criticizing you, for instance, or they don't know you're there, or they yell at you, or like in an extreme situation there's like physical abuse or there's sexual abuse, and that is very clear, like clearly wrong for the person that's experiencing that. And then it's so easy to antagonize the other person and go, that person is bad and that is wrong, and this and that. And while those actions are not good,
Mhm.
um that person, there is a reason why that they are behaving that way.
Mhm.
Perhaps they grew up in an abusive home.
Yeah.
um, and this is where it gets really difficult, because now we're looking at the perpetrator and we're saying, we're humanizing them, and we're saying that, oh, because they're human and they have gone through difficult experiences, what that makes how they treated me okay? No, that's not okay.
No.
and and the truth is, yeah, when that's passed along, that is not okay. But the first thing to do is to, like, yeah, to acknowledge that that person is human, and once that person is heard, when they are able to speak and actually be listened to, listen to their side of the story in a non, like, biased way, and to receive compassion. I that not for everyone, obviously, but there's a lot of cases where, because they've never received that type of attention and compassion, and a listening ear, that suddenly a flood of everything that they have done, comes back to them. And then now they can feel that remorse, and then they realize, because there's a detachment when you're behaving that way. You are detached from who you're hurting. You're not thinking about, I'm causing that person distress. Like, when that
Mhm.
person comes to rob your store, they're not thinking that that person is going to be in distress and that's a bad thing, because they
Mhm.
can't. Because if they did think that, they wouldn't be able to rob the store.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And there's something that is driving to do that, just like, that abusive person, that abusive parent, perhaps they're being driven to do that thing. And if they had the capacity to acknowledge your humanity, they wouldn't be able to do that. because
Mhm.
they would realize how horrible and painful that is.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like, this brings me back to the thing about that I talked about earlier about, life being a void and what it is filled with. So, like, there's also the thing what goes around comes around. What you get is what you give. And like, if a person has been there, he's seen that he or she, they perceive this thing, something as normal. Being an abusive parent usually comes from, when you have seen abuse and it is justified in some way. When it's justified, it you completely in your back of the brain, it seems like it's normal to be, because we say that sometimes don't look at the actions, look at the intentions, but actions are causing negative effect. What about that? Also, like, speaking on a larger scale, I would uh, point to something specific here. Like, sometimes even people, like, robbing and stealing, of course, is bad, and some people do out of necessity, but there are some people who are habitual, not genetically, but they become habitual of that, just maybe to fill a void.
Mm-hmm.
And in that case, like, they're not programmed to do that way, they are just doing it to feel good in some way,
Yeah.
which is a negative, what do we say, which is a negative thing, which is not a good thing.
Well, for them, that's a good thing because they're feeling good. It's like listening to that good music, like it's giving them that energy and motivation. Um, but they're not considering or allowing themselves to feel the consequences of their action.
Yeah.
And that makes you think of a grander scale as well, where like larger oppression of groups,
Yeah.
like when there's people that are asking to be seen and for their humanity to be seen.
Mhm.
Then there's like an even larger group out there that's going like, no, we won't witness your humanity.
Mhm.
What about our humanity? And then they turn it back on themselves.
Mhm.
Um, and so there's this like a shutting down.
Yeah.
There's like that oppressor, the oppressor can shut down the people that are being asked to be seen,
Yeah.
and then that can spur on a negative response because what can they do to be seen? How can you finally hear me? And there's hundreds of years of human history where people have been oppressed, and they're not being listened to, and then that becomes normalized.
Yes.
And then other people are taught to do that, so there's not just like that one, you have your individual instance of an oppressor like abusing a single person, but then
Mm.
there's a whole culture of people that are oppressors. And like you said too, like it's unconscious now because it's been taught that way. It's like, oh, we're a family of stealers. That's what we do. We steal.
Mhm.
We're a family of this. We're a culture of oppressors in a
Mhm.
huge way. And that is, it's so unconscious that we don't even know that we're doing it.
Mhm.
And that, especially when like the Black Lives Matter um progression started happening, there was all this awareness of in all of our individual lives of like, oh wow, there's like these things I didn't even know I was doing. And that's that moment of acknowledging the humanity in another
Mhm.
person and feeling that compassion, but then also feeling that backlash of remorse
Mhm.
and grief, and like feeling like, oh no, I was the perpetrator. Like when we were talking about in the previous episode how we play all roles for
Mhm. Yeah.
all different people. Well,
Mhm.
that is a moment where we are the villain,
Yeah.
and that's a hard pill to swallow,
Mhm.
as for an individual person and for a society. and and
Yes.
and it's not going to go down easy either, because there's a lot of, someone tells you you're doing something wrong, and then you finally know it. Then there's this moment where you like, no, but you put up a wall, and then you say the opposite. You're like, no, I'm not doing it wrong. Like there's a part of your you're lying to yourself. You know, there's denial. It's the stages
Denial.
of recovery. You're
Yes.
that's the word. You're denying it because you can't it's so difficult for you to look that truth in the eye, to stare in that void.
Yeah.
It's so hard that you have to deny it before you can accept it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There is a lot of it. I was just thinking about this thing. It it is said that it takes a village to raise a child, and we were talking about change being the only constant in life, and even that change sometimes, not sometimes, every time in these type of situations, it always takes a generation to bring about the change. Yeah, it takes a moment to think change, but to bring about the change, it always takes a generation. Because
Oh yeah.
yeah, the oppression sometimes we are talking about, you talked about the Black Lives Matter, and that has not been taking place for one generation. That has taken place now at this time for generations and generations and generations.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter, and there have been other things as well in other places of the world. There's same thing going on at a smaller or a larger scale. Thinking is one thing, acting on it is another thing, realizing it is the hardest thing, and it takes generations and generations as well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because there's like an evolving of the human DNA and consciousness.
Yeah.
And that's not something that can happen. It can't happen overnight, and it also can't happen on like just an individual scale and you
Mm.
call it a day. Like
Ye-
we can't individually just decide we're going to change and that's it and that's all. But we can decide to change individually, and that's really important. That's the thing. It's like it's important to do that individual change so that you teach the people around you
mm.
that that's the proper way of behaving, or don't know how else to say that, but like you teach your children, your being in the world shows other people how to be in the world, and that's something that takes time to develop, you know.
Mm. Yeah, I was thinking about this, in this by gone by week, because I've witnessed this. I've been a, I won't say victim. I have been in that place myself as well. Like, uh, sometimes, we talk about doing the things right. Say something as simple as, not throwing your garbage on the road or anywhere else, and we say, you know what, it we should keep our roads clean. We should do this. We should do that. Oh, and we post a lot of things on social media. We share the posters and everything. But outside, we are even discussing it. When we sit in friends, like if the government does this, this happens. If we do that, this will happen. And when we go outside, just throw the garbage on the road or on somewhere else. Like when we see someone doing that same thing, actually, we say, wow, man, that how is that person doing this? I can't do this. We have been talking, like, say, I would take my example. I talk about this, keeping the environment clean, climate change, carbon emissions, lowering down, keeping healthy and things on social media with my friends. But I go out and I don't care about it. And when I see someone do this, and I would say, how are they even doing it? Well, I have been talking. Why am I not doing it? That's the thing. So, in a way, like, if a person can become an inspiration, like, person becomes an inspiration by doing. There's a lot of talking about where someone like me lectures people, tells people to do this and do that. But as long as we are not doing it ourselves, people will not listen to us. Whatever, like we might have the highest of thoughts, but if
Yeah.
actions are not present, people will just take the listen it from one ear and throw it out from the other one. I have been
Yeah.
there. Lots of lectures, no action, it won't affect. Little
Yeah.
action when you become the inspiration, and then people are willing to listen to you and do it.
You're making me think about your analogy that you shared before we started recording. So, can you share that one again with the water?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like I was talking about a tube well back in India. Like I come from the state of Punjab, and it's pretty scenic when you drive from one city to the other because there are fields all around the roadside, and the way to irrigate the fields, there are bore wells and there are tube wells. So the tube well is something like, where is it? Yeah, imagine pipe of this diameter, double or triple it, and there's water coming out of it. So once what happened was we were traveling from my city to some other city, and this tube well came in the way, and there was water coming out of it. We thought, you know what, and that water is good, that water is fresh, so we can use it to drink, we can bathe in the bucket thing that is around it, sometimes that is built, and it is gradually left into the fields to irrigate the fields. So we thought, you know what, let's just drink from it, experience how the water is. So what I thought from there was, if there would have been no water coming, we wouldn't have stopped. We were traveling in a car. We wouldn't have stopped there to, like, drink it. We were thirsty, and there was nothing coming out from there. So we wouldn't have stopped. We wouldn't have cared hoot about it.
Yeah. And if there was someone like standing there with a sign that said, this is where water comes out,
Hmm.
you know, but there was no water to be had, you
Hmm.
wouldn't stop because, where's that truth in the world? You can say it all you want, but if it doesn't actually exist in the world, then it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you're not gonna stop and drink at a pipe that doesn't have water coming out of
Yeah.
it. It's
We
just like, yeah.
we might read the board. Okay, we'll come back when it comes out.
Yeah, but you're like you're on a mission.
Yeah.
You're moving through the world. So if that thing isn't there and readily available to you when you need it, you're not
Hmm.
going to stop and wait for it. You're
Yeah.
not going to turn around and go back to it. You're going to drink from the next available source of water.
Yeah. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
what was I going to say? And yeah, that coming back to the doing of actions, and the actions will be effective only if we are doing it for ourselves consistently. That is when people look at us, not to show. Because if we're showing, we can do it once, we can do it twice, we can do it three times with a lot of difficulty. Fourth time,
Oh my goodness.
oh my God, no one's looking.
Yeah.
Let it be.
Oh my goodness. It's so true. It's this commitment to do it, to follow through on it no matter what the difficulties arise.
Yeah.
And you reminded me of like my dance journey
Hmm.
because when I started dancing, I was like so excited about it, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna become a belly dancer, and then I learned Bhangra. I'm like, I'm gonna do Bhangra. I'm gonna, just and someday I'm gonna teach these things. And then like, after 2 years of dancing, and watching that maybe there wasn't any like visible progress, like when you start learning something, there's the learning curve, right? So like it might take a little bit and then all of a sudden you really start to catch it and that curve goes up. But then you reach another plateau and
Hmm.
then it's because it doesn't seem like there's anything happening necessarily. So you interpret that as being that same level down here where you started, where you're like, oh, now I'm like I'm not growing anymore. What's the point? Even though you have that desire to do that thing,
Hmm.
there's this like sudden lack of motivation, perhaps, or dread, that there's going to be so much work or you're never going to get there because all you can see is now and you can't see past that line.
Hmm.
Um, and so during my dance journey, I just had to keep reminding myself that I just to stick with it, even if I felt inadequate, which I felt inadequate a lot.
Hmm.
And I would compare myself. I'd go, well, but that person's been dancing longer than me, and I'm still new at this, or like I'm also like unique because like everyone else, so I'm gonna learn in a different way and move in a different way.
Absolutely.
And so like even after like 5 years of dancing, there is still that like comparison with myself going, oh, I'm not a master, like, why am I not a master belly dancer yet? But then now it's been 10 years, and there's like this, it's now become who I am, like it's so integrated into how I move in the world that there's even a forgetting of what it was like to be a beginner, because
Absolutely.
I have to like consciously remind myself what it was like to be a beginner, or watch a video or something. Because now it's who you are. um and so yeah there's that very delicate timeline of learning something, or doing something new, learning how to, be more conscious of the environment, for instance. And, 2 years of doing it, you don't think you're making much of a difference. Well, you got to think a little bit further down the line. And if you're consistent enough, then it will become who you are. In 10 years, that'll be who you are, if it's something that you truly want to stick with.
Yep. Yep. That is so true. That is
Yeah.
so true. Yeah.
And
And
it's not something you can track, I don't think. Like, I gave it a timeline, but it's imperceptible, because I don't know if we had mentioned it before, but there's like that, when you're experiencing something, you're not reflecting on it,
yeah.
because to reflect on it means you have to stop experiencing and look at it. So those two things can't happen at the same time. You can't be working towards something and constantly be reflecting on it, because then you're not consistently working towards it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, well. A quote came to my mind. Reflection is analysis of experience.
Yeah. Reflection is analysis of experience.
And
Totally.
the thing about being, that you identifying yourself with what you are doing, that is so true. Because if I talk about myself, I wasn't a very people's person, and I started a job at a convenience store, and it involved multitasking, being good with the people, and managing so much. And I would dread that. Like, I have had many slip ups. I have had like many times that I've caused loss to my manager, but slowly and steadily, because I was doing it consistently, I became good, and I'm so easy at it right now. I'm I can talk to people. I know how to, manage things around, and I can teach people how to do that. But the thing is, I didn't know what was the moment, what was the day that, out of a sudden that I learned it. It's never there. It's like always that small efforts, consistent efforts, being doing the same thing over and over and over again, that makes you who you are. Like, you're talking about being a master belly dancer. What came to my mind was, you don't call yourself a master. Master is something of a perception of the people who see you. It's just that, for example, if I'm looking up to someone as an actor, I probably that actor has been in the acting field for a long time, and he has a name for themselves. Oh, why am I saying he or she has a name for themselves, has been doing it consistently. That's why I look up to them. That I call someone the master, or the expert in this. And God, I
Yeah.
lost my train of
No,
thought.
but you're so right, though. And like, you're really like highlighting something in myself, and it's actually helping me feel a little bit better, because it's so easy to be hard on yourself, right? It's so easy to turn
Absolutely.
back and say, I'm not good enough yet, you know? Or I'll never be good enough. Like, every single time you try, it just doesn't seem to work.
Mhm.
Um, and and there's another saying too, where fall down 7 times, get up 8.
Yeah.
So there's this fear of falling down. There's this fear of failure that is very prevalent being human, really, just in general, I would say. Um, where somewhere along the line we developed this fear of failing. And the truth is that you're going to fail. You're going to fail a lot if you act in the world. If you're not going to act in the world, then maybe you won't fail very much, but maybe that inaction could be considered a failure. There's a missed mark there.
Mhm.
But like the truth is, for anyone that has been successful, and that I'm going to let that be a loose term, whatever you define to be successful, a good parent, or happy, or maybe built a big company or something. Those people have failed a lot. And the difference between them and someone who maybe isn't doing it as well is that they got up and they did it again. They
Yeah.
tried again. They kept trying.
Mhm.
Yeah, and
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's like, yeah. And the truth too is that the more that you fall down, the better at falling you're gonna get. It's not gonna hurt as much, because you're gonna get tougher because of it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like there's a saying by Thomas Edison: "I didn't fail. I discovered 10,000 ways of how you cannot make a bulb."
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Same thing.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. Will Smith, in one of his videos, he said that, fail early, fail often, fail forward, because that's the only way you're going to reach the top.
Mm. Yeah, that's great. There's one that keeps coming to mind, and I don't know if it's like directly related to the failure, but it's something that's been coming up to me. I have this little like Zen book,
Mhm.
um, where I just will open it randomly and read whatever quotes are on it. And there's this one that comes up a lot, actually, and I'll try to paraphrase it because I don't know exactly, but when a buffalo passes through a window, its head goes through, its body goes through, why not also its tail? So there's something about, if someone has succeeded in something, well, why not you? Why can't you do it too? Or if you are able to be accomplished in all these other areas in your life, why
Mhm.
can't you be accomplished in this area also?
Yep.
It's a rhetorical question, really. It's like, yes, you can pass through. All of you can pass through. You can do it. And that like positive attitude also is very helpful in that, and being, yeah, feeling optimistic about it, even if you're getting evidence back that is negative, but just regarding it, the void is going to give you what you put into it and what you pay
Absolutely.
attention to, right? So if you're putting in negativity, it's going to give you negativity. It's that feedback, what you give, what you get. So if you're paying attention to optimism, and you are getting up and you're trying your best, that's what you're going to get. You're going to just, it's going to come back.
Absolutely. Yeah. 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 I was actually, thinking about some things that related to that only going on in my life, and how I need to change my perspective on it and start working again. Because like I've been away from it for some time. He said, there's a lot of things going on my brain. Yeah, but that really helps. Thank you.
Yes, well, you're welcome.
Yeah, because that thing always, is happening all around me, but it never really affected me. It's the same thing, it has come up in many other ways, but it's not really affecting me. And today I just had a little bit effect on me. Not all, but yes. I might try doing that thing optimistically, and maybe going forward with it.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Well, and like the truth is like, does it hurt to be optimistic? Is it hurting you?
No, no.
No, it feels good, actually.
Yeah, yeah,
If
yeah.
it's what you're doing is you're like believing in something,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
it's okay to believe in something. Actually, it's good to believe in something, because if you don't believe in something, then what are you working towards, or like what are you know, it's like that beacon in your life, right? Like you gotta believe in it. You gotta believe in yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Hey everyone, thank you so very much for listening. We hope it was of some value to you. This podcast is about us expressing our own thoughts, and we do not intend to harm or hurt any individual or community's feelings or beliefs. Please let us know in the comment section below what you think, or if you have any topics that you want us to talk about. We're eager to hear from you. Please give us a thumbs up if you liked us. Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so that you can get notified when we post new content. If someone came to your mind while listening to us, please share this with them right now. Spread the word. This is Gursimar Singh, signing off things right now with my fellow deep thinker Samantha Jolene. Take care, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.